Critical Role Recap Season 2, Episode 39. So last week we ended off with the Mighty Nein having followed Captain Avantika and Jumanji Costco into this jungle island where they found a pyramid temple that snake people seem to have taken over and are beginning to use as their own temple to their own snake deity thingy. And the Mighty Nein snuck past a bunch of people, killed some people, confused some people, and eventually made their way into the temple proper. As they began their descent down the stairs, they set off a trap, and the stairs turned into a slide, and they all slid down to the very bottom, where they encountered a group of snake men with one large snake creature abomination thing. And that was where that last week's episode ended off, and this week's episode picked up. So we start off this week immediately with combat. Most of the episode was combat. There were multiple points of combat, and the large majority of it was fighting. The first bout of combat went pretty smoothly. They handled the giant snake dude and his snake-like buddies pretty easily. Ford did actually manage to scare the final one of them into surrendering their arms. However, once they began to ask this creature, humanoid, snaky thingy some questions, she slit her throat and killed herself instead of giving them any information. So they did a bit of dungeon delving, looking around for clues and puzzle kind of stuff, and not used the rubies that she had picked up off of one of the person's pockets and slotted them into these snake statues into their eyes. Once she slotted in the final ruby, the fountain that was in the center started to rotate and travel downwards and open up this gap where they could then descend down into the next level of the dungeon. Down there, they found a terrarium of sorts. There were a bunch of fruit-bearing trees that were somehow growing down there in the dark, and Not decided to go ahead and eat one of the fruit, and immediately started tripping balls. However, her ingesting this fruit seemed to open her up to some other plane in a way, and she was able to see things that the others could not. And it was once again another puzzle aspect kind of thing. And Caleb also went ahead and partook of this trippy fruit that they found and started to, with his comprehend language, read off what the different passages were saying that were written on the walls. And essentially it was saying, like, the blood sacrifices feed the trees, and the trees feed the sentinel, the guard. As they're tripping balls and kind of figuring out what's going on here, some vines suddenly start wrapping around and attacking them and strangling them, and there's a brief bit of combat there where they do manage to strike down all the vines, and they take a nice short rest to recover all of their spells and some hit points and get ready for what is below. They manage to find their way down into the next passage, using Knott's tiny form to slip between some gaps and find a trigger to open up the doors. They manage to stealth their way down and come upon a chamber with a pool in the center of it that has this giant snake abomination thing maybe praying over it or sleeping, just kind of napping and chilling over this pool. And so they sneak down and manage to get off a round of sneak attacks on it and do quite a bit of damage to it. However, they do not take it down, and in the ensuing combat, out of this pool rises a 5-headed hydra. So they end up fighting the snake abomination and the 5-headed hydra at the same time. They learn that by burning the hydra after cutting off its head, it won't be able to regrow the head. However, it ends up regrowing a bunch of heads because they don't really have very many sources of fire damage other than Caleb, and Caleb didn't bring a lot of his fire spells prepared for this combat. But they do end up eventually managing to take down the Hydra and this abomination with a lot of help from Yasha, who is being piloted by Ford, and also Captain Ivanica does help them in combat. However, Jumanji basically just hides in a corner the whole time. Bo is the only one that gets knocked unconscious. It's a pretty hairy fight, and they do come close to disaster a few times, and the timing works out so that they do manage to take down the Hydra just in time, and they all make it out relatively unscathed, and that is where the episode ends. So basically, it was an entire night full of combat. They fought this really cool Hydra beast. We didn't really learn any more about what's going on. At one point in their dungeon delving, Ivanica did slip off using her invisibility, possibly, or just stealthily. She did slip off and seemed to go investigate another room and didn't really tell them about what was going on. When Jester went to investigate that room, she found a dead body that Ivanica had said was there, but on the dead body was a pouch, and that pouch was empty. So Ivanica might have picked something up out of this pouch. I mean, it could have just been gold, it could have, or they could have been empty all along, but she did kind of slip off and was a little evasive, but they kind of just moved over that and ignored it for the most part. So we'll see. There might be something that Ivanica is trying to do. Ford also told Ivanica about his most recent dream where he gained control of the oceans themselves, and he had had this dream just recently. And she definitely seemed a bit jealous and indicated that she hadn't had a dream in about 2 years. So she's happy to have a chosen one, but at the same time maybe thinking, oh, what if, he's been chosen over me? What if I was chosen and then this guy has more preference from this deity? But yeah, that's where the episode ended off. So next week we'll see more about this temple and maybe bring out Ford's god or have to kill Ivanica or who knows. But that's about it. So I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.